Hi everyone, welcome. This is going to be one of the multiple parts that I am making for my trip so that y'all aren't alone during my trip. But this is part one of Infected Town, the Reddit story I'm going to go ahead and read from nosleep. And this and D&D will be kind of your companions while I'm at TwitchCon and in California. So again, I apologize that I have to do this virtually, but I wanted you guys to have some backup for when I'm gone. Anyways, I hope you enjoy, and I hope everything goes the way that we expect it and that nothing goes wrong. Bye. Named Explorer. I love the rush of entering places people rarely go, seeing things people rarely see. Given that I live in a large city, most of what I do is urban exploration, which generally consists of breaking into abandoned buildings and snapping picture after picture. You've probably seen some of my material on r slash abandoned porn or r slash urban exploration, but I'm not linking them. Throwaway account to tell my story, so no one I know can call me crazy. For me, and I'm sure you guys can appreciate this sentiment, it's always been the creepier, the better. Some of my favorite buildings to explore have been abandoned mental institutions or sanitariums, where the ghost stories write themselves. I've never seen a ghost, however, and before last week, I didn't believe in anything paranormal at all. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The reason I've decided to break silence after a year of lurking on this sub, I'm a big no sleeper, it's because last week I decided to go on a road trip. I needed a breath of fresh air from personal bullshit, so I decided to visit my best friend down in San Francisco for a change of scenery. The drive from my coastal city, bet you can guess which one, takes 12 hours on the southbound freeway, especially alone, so I plan to use mainly back roads, the scenic route, if you will, winding through small towns and wilderness. If I saw anything interesting, be it an old cabin in the woods or a charming small town diner, I'd stop and check it out. This extended my trip by a significant amount, and I wound up driving 6 or 7 hours on the first day alone. Sunset, I started looking for a motel, but all I saw were trees and an empty road. I refused to check my phone for a place to stay, liking the spontaneity and false sense of 21st century danger. I was content in knowing I was going south and would reach civilization eventually. The sun was disappearing behind the trees, and a light rain began to fall, typical for this time of year. I took my eyes off the road for a second, fumbled with the cigarette, and realized it was getting too dark to see. I flicked on the headlights, glanced at the windshield, and immediately slammed on the brakes. My car skidded a few feet in the rain, but luckily stopped before it hit the Jersey barriers that had been set up across the road. They sprang up out of nowhere. No warning signs, no roads ahead, just four low concrete walls all the way across the two lanes. They would have seriously fucked up my car if I hadn't seen them in time. I'd been going 45. I caught my breath, wondering how many people had almost crashed as I did. Probably not many. I hadn't seen a single other car for the past 2 hours. Tinted detour sign pointed towards the road branching off into the night through the trees, doubtlessly leading back towards the freeway, but my eyes were drawn to the road beyond the barriers. There was no sign of construction of any kind. The road was empty, and the pavement looked exactly as old as when I'd just been traveling. My decision was not a difficult one. Carefully ignoring the detour, car along the narrow strip of gravel to the right of the barriers and quite easily drove past them. 30 minutes, with no sound of construction or life of any kind. It was growing darker, and I was getting unsettled, but that only increased my curiosity. What was at the end of this closed road? Well, I was greeted with the sight of a few buildings and a large wooden sign. Welcome to blank, it said. I'm not omitting the name or doing anything cheeky. As to what the town's called, I'm as curious as you are. I didn't read the name or any other words. Most of the sign center down was covered in what looked like splotchy paint, or maybe some kind of plant life. It was difficult to tell in the falling darkness, but you could see that the boards at the bottom were chipped and scratched, like an animal had gotten to it. Not anything from a monster movie, just the common weathering of old wood left in the forest. But there were man-made scratches in it too, gouged deeply into the wood over the black paint. I leaned out the window and pointed my flashlight in it. Come in. Weird, but I've seen much worse graffiti in ghost towns, which I assumed this was. That got my heart pumping with excitement. I drove into town, past quite a few promising locations, all dark and empty. A police station, its windows shattered and subsequently boarded, the glass still glittering on the sidewalk. Houses with doors broken off the hinges and crooked shutters. A grocery store, where one street lamp burned eerily green by the entrance. An apartment building, the glass of its double doors and all windows apparently painted with that same splotchy black paint on the town sign. Though my fingers were twitching, I didn't get out of the car. It was getting dark and I was getting tired. I was alone and I had no information on this ghost town. I wasn't about to break into places if they were occupied, especially at night with nothing but a flashlight. Because that's the thing. The town didn't have the air of 50 years of abandonment. Besides the boards across the doors and windows and the lack of electric light, this place looked like it could have been inhabited yesterday. There was no building decomposition or crumbling masonry, at least from what I could see. No graffiti anywhere that would have marked the presence of other people, besides the black paint. The architecture was modern and generally holding up pretty well. Was this really a ghost town? It must be. I didn't see a single other person. All cars were parked and dusty. All businesses looked closed. This is probably my imagination, but from the moment I drove past the sign, I felt eyes on me from all directions. I didn't feel welcome here, though I wasn't sure there was no one to be bothered. And then there was the smell. It was faint, but ever present, floating on the wind as my car crept down Main Street. That stale, earthy scent of old basements and wet, dark places. Mold. This town smelled like mold. Fed up, deciding to drive through the town and continue south. I'd find a place to stay nearby and return in the morning to do a bit of proper exploring. The apartment building and the police station were especially tempting. I'd never explored a police station before. I was just about to cross a bridge that marked the south border of town, leaving the buildings behind and continuing into the woods, when I saw somebody walking down near the creek. Nearly jumped out of my chest. I was alone. I stopped the car but didn't get a very good look in the gathering twilight before she, if it was a she, disappeared under the bridge. She was very, very thin. Starvation status, I'm sure of it. And walked with a pronounced limp. She had a pale head, mostly bald, but near the top of her scalp was growing a few scattered clumps of thin, wispy brown hair. It was really long and went over her shoulders and down her back. A filthy dress hung off her frame. I watched her for a moment with my mouth open, then sped across the bridge when she disappeared from sight. She hadn't looked up at me, even though my headlights had been shining on her. Part of me thought I could see if I could help her, but part of me was screaming that it was a bad idea. I'm a lone, unarmed woman, and I don't know who or what was under that bridge. Trust your gut, I say. I reached another set of barriers further down the road, and with another detour side leading oncoming traffic towards the freeway. It seemed these barriers had been set up specifically to cordon off the town. Why? I found a motel near the freeway and a small gas station. I decided to stay the night and go back first thing tomorrow. I called my friend in San Francisco and excitedly explained my discovery and why I might be another day late. Now that I was out of the town, I brushed off the feeling of unease. It had been quiet and eerie, and that lady was creepy as hell. But with the freeway only 10 miles away, I figured a transient had wandered along. Maybe she was squatting in the town. But dealing with homeless people is part of the adventure. So yes, I went back. There's a lot more to this story, and soon you'll understand why I'm posting this to r/nosleep as opposed to along. I think I'll save the rest for next time. Sorry this wasn't too exciting. I googled ghost towns in Oregon, but nothing fit the description. Does anyone who live around here have any idea about the history of this place? Sorry I can't give you a name, but maybe you'll come across the creepy little village too. One that seems abandoned and smells like mold. I spent a few days looking through your comments and reading here in San Francisco. Thank you so much, you brilliant detectives. Apparently, that place that closely resembles the town I explored is mentioned in a previous series of stories. After reading about what happened to Liz, Jess, and Alan, I was a bit worried. Here, I've linked them. And we will go through that later. The thing, I can't take all of your advice about not returning to the infected. Did all of this last week before heading to California. I'm currently safe in San Francisco, with no signs of moldiness. Where we last left off, Caroline, yours truly, and returned to Creepyville in the morning to do a bit of exploring. I asked the gas station attendant about the ghost town up the road. He said he used to get a lot of regulars from up that way, but not for a while. Then the road got closed. There used to be a few more signs and some police tape, he said. I've seen a couple cop cars parked up by the barriers. I asked him the name of the village, but he said he didn't know. I thought it was really weird. Why around half an hour away? There's nothing up that way, he said as I left. Oh, good. My own personal harbinger of doom. The next morning, I got up and packed my backpack. Extra batteries, gloves, an N95 respirator in case of mold or asbestos, rope, a fuck ton of glow sticks, a few flares, a basic first aid kit, and my Swiss Army knife. Water. I also brought my handy dandy crowbar. It was heavy, but worth lugging around in the face of a stuck door or window. Idiot, I'd left my camera at home. I mourned this since the night before when I looked at my bag and found it missing. Sure, I'd packed it, having planned to explore places my friend knew in San Francisco, but it's probably sitting on my bed at home, all lonely and sad. I took a couple of pictures in town with my phone, but none of them turned out. Terrible lighting, I guess, at the time. So, the first exploration. The feeling of being watched returned immediately upon crossing the bridge into the village, and as I drove towards the building, the scent of mold did as well. Faint, but eternally present. First stop was the police station. I weighed the pros and cons of breaking into a government building, but not for long. Too eager. The town was as empty as ever, after all, and I parked behind the station, besides a few dusty squads. Guess the building should be called more of a sheriff's office than an actual police station. It's a low, tan-colored building with a ground floor and a basement. The windows in the back aren't busted like in the front, but they're spots of black, a door in the corners, and most of them, which I soon discovered was some kind of mold. I've never seen mold like it, though. First, in case people were actually in the building, but they were locked. I swung around back where I'd seen a metal maintenance door when I parked. It had been firmly shut, I remembered. I didn't have much hope for it. Already planning to try to pry open a window, I came around the corner of the building. The maintenance door was open. I blinked. Yes, there it was, open just a crack. I couldn't believe I hadn't noticed it before, but brushed it off. Breathing deeply, I pushed open the door and was met with a stifling smell of mold. I got the N95 out of my bag and affixed it to my face in case of spores. I stepped inside the building after wedging the door open with a heavy rock. The hallway I stood in had a bathroom to my immediate right and a custodial supplies closet to my left. It led to a large office area with many doors and cubicles. There were 3 small jail cells in the northwest corner, and a small little door to the east was a reception and waiting area. The place was dusty and the sounds were muffled, like cloth pressed over the ears. The interior had a distinct look of decay. Paint was peeling off the walls, all the light bulbs were broken, the carpet was pulling up the corners. The mold around the windows didn't have the usual spotty pattern I associate with mold. It grows in groups, usually in the corners, in a big black mass, and then it spreads out in long, slender lines made up of tiny colonies. I wasn't even sure it is mold. At times, it looks like it. At other times, it looks like some sort of plant life. It smells like mold, though. I avoided all physical contact. The walls and ceilings of the building weren't moldy, just the windows. I picked my way through the office area towards the holding cells. It looked eerily as though people had up and left in the middle of a workday. Photos and personal effects still sat on desks. Paper and files littered the ground, but they were also stacked high on desks and in and out trays. Rotting jackets were draped over rotting chairs. Most of the doors were locked. The cells were locked too, and empty. I was a bit disappointed by the building so far. I found out why the front window was shattered when I went into the lobby. Bullet holes peppered the plaster on either side of it, and bullet casings littered the floor. A smear of what looked like dried blood painted the wall under the window. What had happened here? There were no bodies. Maybe it was an old crime scene, which was actually pretty cool. I tried taking pictures, but like I said, they didn't turn out. They just looked black or really blurry sepia tones. Something moved to my left. I couldn't see it, but I heard shifting of papers and something sliding on the carpet. I froze, pointed my light in direction, and yelled, "Anyone in here?" No response. Heart rate quickening, I asked again. It was met with only rustling. The noise came from behind a tall reception desk. I got up on my tiptoes and shone the light behind it. The noises stopped. Just a swivel chair and a knocked over phone. I couldn't see under the desk, and the door to the right led into a reception area that was locked. At this point, I assumed an animal was in here. Maybe a raccoon. Raccoons freak me out. They're vicious little shits. Don't let their adorable faces fool you. In any case, I decided to leave well enough alone and check the basement. I mentioned several times that this town made me feel watched. Upon stepping down those creaky wooden stairs and letting the door swing shut behind me, the feeling intensified tenfold. I figured at the time that it was because it was pitch black and I only had my flashlight to see by. The decay down here was particularly bad. The entire ceiling was covered in black, as well as the ventilation ducts dripped blackish water. Along one wall hung 3 headless human figures, brown and rotting. They made me jump violently when I hit on them, but a second look told me they were actually old hazmat suits that seemed to be covered in filth. The helmets lay at their feet. Someone had set up a makeshift lab down here, between filing cabinets and cardboard boxes. The rotting cabinets on the opposite wall had a microscope, a bunch of dirty test tubes and glassware, and a 2013 Mac desktop, which looked just as moldy as the rest of the place. That gave me pause. Decay in such a modern building. The computer looked like it had been there for 30 years, not one. A pile of papers sat next to the microscope, mildewed and barely legible, but dense with type. I remember a few phrases from what I glanced at it, like accelerated growth and stage 1 symptoms that caught my attention. I was about to start flipping through the file, but before I could even touch it, the door at the top of the stairs behind me slammed open. I yelped and spun around. "Get up here!" Someone screamed from upstairs. It was a male voice, ragged and breaking. Though the tone was aggressive, he didn't sound angry so much as panicked. It set my heart thudding. The beam of my flashlight didn't reach the top of the stairs, so I couldn't see who was calling to me. No one was at the top of the stairs when I got closer. Get up. I took them 2 at a time. The main floor hallway was empty too, which both relieved and perplexed me. Where had it gone? Didn't matter. I decided to try to escape any form of trouble and made my way quickly towards the maintenance door I'd entered the building by. It had shut behind me, I noticed immediately, which means somebody else was definitely in the building. I raced towards it, though nothing was chasing me, almost expecting it to be locked. But it opened quite easily, and I spilled out into the sunlight. I tripped over the heavy rock I'd used to prop the door open. Up and found sanctuary in my car. I probably should have left town then. The experience with the screaming man had set me on edge, and I hadn't really enjoyed exploring the police station. Even seeing the old crime scene in the lobby had failed to really pique my enthusiasm, prodding instead at my underlying fears. What happened here? Was the bloodstain connected to the lab in the basement? I wasn't done looking around town. I'll save the exploration of the apartment building for next time. It was the creepiest place I've ever been in terms of atmosphere. It deserves its own update. Thanks again for all your help, No Sleep. There are a lot of pressing things going on right now, and most of them seem connected to No Sleep and the infected town. It makes it hard to just write about what I did last week, since I'm dying to share these new experiences and possible clues with you. But I've decided you need to keep the story in chronological, at the very least to avoid confusion. And maybe revisiting these events on paper will help clear things up for me. So instead of telling you what's happening here in California, no worries, there are still no signs of moldiness, just increasing amounts of weirdness. Let's go back a week, before I'd ever heard of Jess, Liz, or Alan. After leaving the police station, I had the whole day left and really wanted to feel like exploring this town was worthwhile. I decided to check out the apartment building. Hillside Apartments is a 4-story building on the south side of town, not far from the bridge. Very normal-looking brick building from the outside, probably built sometime in the 80s. No signs of structural decay. The only strange thing as you're walking up to the front doors is that all of the windows on the face of the building are covered in black from the inside. Fine, I at first thought it was black spray paint or something of the like. As you might have guessed though, it was mold. The front doors were locked. There was a keypad and a call box, but neither seemed to have power running to them. I made my way around the parking lot of the building, past a row of dusty cars, and up the ramp towards the back door. It was stuck or something. The handle turned and there was no sign of a deadlock, but no amount of pushing on my part would make it open. I half-heartedly gave the crowbar a few tries, but soon gave up. I found myself the ground floor windows around front were low enough to slide through easily. Luckily for me, the third window I attempted was unlocked and slid open, only sticking once or twice. I plopped my backpack through, then followed headfirst. I had to push my way through the rotten Venetian blinds. I found myself in an apartment bedroom. Flashlight. I let the beam wander around for only a moment before reaching back into my bag for the respirator again. This place looked worse than the police station basement. Black mold covered the floors, walls, ceilings. Water gathered in one corner of the ceiling as under a busted pipe, letting gray droplets escape to join the pool of water and the decaying mattress underneath. Furniture had been reduced to vague shapes, stained and rotten, in tones of gray and black. The bedroom and walked through a living area that could have been inhabited yesterday if not for the mold. Again, the place didn't look deserted, it looked like it had been evacuated. A few bottles and cans littered the coffee table and the living room near the entertainment cabinet with an expensive looking, yet seemingly decaying, sound system and TV. A couple plates sat on the counter in the kitchen, covered in gray and black gunk, along with a sink full of dishes glowing green algae. But the creepiest things were the family photos lining the walls. Mom, dad, two infants, grinning at me from silver frames. All left there hanging. Mold began to creep on their happy, normal faces. Anyone moving out would take those, surely. I could explain away the dishes and the electronics, but family pictures? People have fires for family pictures. And unnerved, and turned back to see which number it was. Only there were no apartment numbers on the door. I shone my light down the hall either side. No numbers on any doors. Why? The more I discovered in this town, the weirder it seemed to get. I decided to go sweep the apartment building and see if I could enter every room. It would take a while, but I wanted answers. Maybe I'd even go back to the police station once I'd given the man time to leave. I found, when exploring, that a systematic approach works best for me. I usually choose a corner in the highest or lowest accessible area of the building and spread out from there. This area ensures that if the building proves interesting and you want to make a scene of it, that you don't end up confusing yourself and skipping or backtracking. This building wasn't all that big, so I wasn't really worried about getting lost. What did concern me was the idea of someone else being in the building with me. I couldn't shake that feeling. It's much darker inside than it has any right to be. Darkness breeds everywhere, so deep that the corners look like a void. At one point, I turned off my flashlight, on the ground floor, mind you, and discovered I couldn't see if I moved it more than 5 inches from my face. It was an unnatural darkness for 11 a.m. on a Saturday, even inside. Glass crunched under my boots as I made my way down the hall, and I looked up to see that every fixture was missing a bulb and had been grown over with mold. The windows all hosted their own colonies too, emitting all from the sun. My goal was the stairs, but I had to try every apartment on the way there. More than a few were locked, and showed me much of the same scene as the first apartment. Stained, moldy couches, cushions flattened with use, full trash bins and half-loaded dishwashers, broken desktop computers and TVs. Left behind and slowly being taken over by mold. Pictures, books, clothes, magazines, jewelry boxes. While personal and every identifying detail or number seemed elusive. Rot covered the date on a newspaper I found. Mail left in piles on a bookshelf had been so waterlogged that the name and addresses were illegible. It became a kind of game for me to try to find one piece of evidence as to when the town had been last functioning and who had lived here. Even a year would have made me jump for joy. I still wanted to confirm this. And if I had found that the town had been inhabited in 2012 or 2013, there's more evidence that it's the place where Alan and Liz lived. I came into the lobby, which is large enough that the beam of my flashlight couldn't reach the opposite wall, swallowed instead into darkness. I didn't linger for here too long. I hated the feeling that I was in such a vast place, like a mouth of a pitch black cave. I found a door marked stairway and went inside. Whereas the lobby brought my agoraphobia, this space seemed uncomfortably cramped. I felt like I was being encroached on by all sides by the grimy walls as I made my way down the concrete steps. So much so that I kept swinging my light left and right to make sure the passage wasn't getting narrower. Raspy breathing filled the space, and I'm not sure it was just my own. Immediately upon leaving the stairway, my light found shelves filled with rusty machinery and a ceiling of blackened pipes. Custodial and maintenance tools littered the floor. The hallway ahead gave me the creeps, like the lobby swallowed by the darkness before it ended. So I turned right and went to the shorter corridor and opened a door. Everything looked typical from the building. Decay reigned, but everything was recognizable. A hulking mass of rusting machinery took up half the room, and pipes and ventilation shafts crisscrossed the moldy ceiling. In one corner of the wall was a set of iron ladder rungs leading up to a trapdoor in the ceiling. When I shone my flashlight towards the boiler and their pipes, something struck me as odd. It looked like something was behind the machinery. I came closer, peering between pipes and down twisted hunks of metal, but I couldn't get a good look. There was definitely something back there. Finally, I squeezed myself between a boiler and a wall and changed my flashlight to the other hand and got a good look at my discovery. It was laying on a pile of mold as though the fungus had gathered around in a mound as a makeshift bed. Can mold pile up so high? Not sure what it was, but after reading Jessica's story, it was tiny, smaller than most humans. It lay in the fetal position, all curled up at itself, except for its shriveled white legs, which hung at unnatural angles from its hips. There were no toes or anything recognizable as feet from what I could see, and no hands beside two fused masses of flesh at the ends of its arms. I could see its ribs, though, and its flesh on the torso, but all other details you associate with humans were gone. No belly button, no nipples, no hair. It was too pale to be flesh-toned, with a tiny hint of gray like a decaying corpse. The head was bald and withered. Its face was turned towards me, at least I thought it was. No nose, just a smooth expanse of pallid flesh over the largest mouth I'd ever seen. The creature was smiling broadly, from ear to ear and chin to cheekbones. Its teeth were human-shaped, but far longer and seemed fused together. There were no gap between teeth of the upper jaw and the lower teeth of the lower. I freaked out. While trying to squirm out of the space between boiler and wall, I noticed something about the creature. No movement, no breathing, not even a twitch or any kind of reaction to my movement. I realized after a minute that it was dead. For me, I couldn't stand being in the building another minute. I raced up the stairs and, avoiding the lobby, went back to the window I entered through. I fell through so quickly that I knocked the wind out of myself when I landed. Leaving the police station, I found sanctuary in my car, except this time I drove straight out of town. I rationalized these events back at the motel, between a hot shower and a cold beer. Maybe it had been a doll of some kind, or a mannequin, or even a petrified animal. I think at one point I decided it was a fucked up student art project. But now, I think I saw the same creature just seen in the basement of the building 7 months ago. This time it wasn't moving around. So the next day I continued into San Francisco, glad to be putting distance between myself and the ghost town. But that doesn't mean things are over. I'm not done trying to figure things out. I'm brave enough to do any more solo exploring. I'll keep you updated. The delay in updates. Things are kind of blowing up thing over here in San Francisco. I guess locals hate it when you call it that. My laptop broke in 2 days after I posted. Not sure if it was a horrible virus or a hardware issue, but my mouse moves around on its own on screen and I have no control over it. The movements look mostly haphazard, but it keeps opening documents, including this account, along with exploration journal entries. It opens up files too, but without control over the mouse, I can't tell which ones. I don't think it's anything to do with the infected town, but it is super annoying and preventing me from posting here. As of now, I'm oscillating between typing this out on my phone and using Blake's computer. I sent my laptop to a computer guy, so hopefully it'll be fixed soon. Honestly, I have other things on my mind, but I am alive and totally fine. Still no signs of mold in California. Since I work online from home anyway, I've extended my trip here by quite a bit. Blake is to get days off from work so he can come with me, and now we're apparently taking his girlfriend along too. I have to admit, when I first read the posts by Jessica, Liz, and Alan, I thought a few kids had been inspired by the infected town and written an elaborate, scary story about it. The mold, the buildings, the body in the basement. All could be explained by separate natural events. If you firmly refuse to believe in the paranormal, I didn't actually think the town was infected so much as unlucky. Still not sure where I stand on the whole paranormal issue. I might have to literally get slapped in the face by a monster before completely accepting it. But since posting these accounts and getting attention for them, I've gotten several strange messages and emails. Not sure how you found my email address, as far as I can tell. So, as for future plans, I'm going to take planning to go back, this time with reinforcements, and we're going to figure out what's happening there. It's likely going to be me, Blake, and his girl Heather, who we met at the bar a couple nights after I got into town. They clicked immediately, so now we have a new team member. They've both been prepped on what's going on, and both of them are aware of the risks and still willing to join me. I haven't slept well since leaving Oregon. I have nightmares nearly every night. The kind of thing's chasing you, but you can't see it, and you can't quite get the muscles in your legs to move. I've mostly fixed the problem with melatonin tablets and vodka. Having no dreams at all is superior to having nightmares. But I'm hoping the exposure to mold spores hasn't permanently altered my neurons or something. She says, as though she has any idea what she's talking about. The update. First off, a couple months after arriving in California, I got a PM on Reddit from you/help me nosleep. If you don't remember, that was Jess's username when she first posted her story. Since the story's end, Help Me No Sleep and you/Alan PWTF have been posting weird messages in comment sections, usually story rhymes. I've gone through the comment history and was creeped out when I realized a lot of these comments almost sounded playful or like they were trying to be. Only a few get aggressive, but when they do, they get really aggressive. Also, Help Me No Sleep has a pattern of bizarre misspellings with no rhyme or reason to them. I don't get it. Here's a PM I got in case you can make any more sense of it. Subject, my dear Claire. Help Me No Sleep, sent 2 weeks ago. VRRS, which is probably verse. O'er the midnight moorlands crying, through the cypress forests sighing, and the night wind madly flying, hellish forms with streaming hair, barren branches creaking, by the stagnant swamp pools speaking, past the shore cliffs speaking, damned demons of despair. 216 or 22, 26, 215, 231, V11, V35 for V8, V22, V21, V36, V37, 12, 323, 534, 415, 515, 412, 437. Do not trust him. Relax the rest. TP despair. So yeah, there's that. Seems our moldy friend is a poet. I'm not so English lit girl. The streaming hair bit immediately made me think that the lady under the bridge, and the forest imagery made me think of the woods around the town, except there's no swamps or moors nearby, to my knowledge. And underneath the verse, some kind of code. I haven't tried to match them up as lines words in the verse, but the results is gibberish. I thought 2 would mean line 2 word 2, only it doesn't. Also, obviously none of the lines have 35 words. Must be something else. Who's the fucking say? It's clear Help Me No Sleep is insane. Sleep knows my name, since I'm pretty sure I haven't told anyone here. But now the secret's out. Name's Claire. Nice to meet you. I hesitate to call Sleep Jess or say that whoever may be posting as you/Alan PWTF is Alan or Liz. I think whatever is behind the mold has the password to all of their accounts and working knowledge of phones and computers, even if they suck at typing. I think the comments are just meant to tease or fuck with us. Help Me No Sleep, in particular, seems to want to pique my curiosity and make me return to the town. I'll rise to that challenge. The next item of interest was something I found in the passenger seat of my car shortly after I'd left town the second time. I'd left my windows cracked, so somebody could easily have slipped it inside and I was exploring the apartment. I forgot about it when I posted the previous update, but I recently found it again, where I'd shoved in the bottom of my backpack. It's just a note. I took this picture of it at the motel, but it's transcribed here. Get out of this town. I don't know who you are or why you're here, but get out. I'm not afraid to take drastic measures if I see you here again. A final warning, little girl. Someday you'll thank me. A friend. I'm getting sick of vague warnings. On the back of the folded note was drawn a house with caution, do not enter next. Idea what that's supposed to symbolize, but I'm adding the note here to the evidence file. I know a lot of you will say it's Z or his organization. I don't think so, and here's why. I received this email 3 days ago. 2 It's from unknown. Yeah, that's all it said. Unknown. I don't know why you make your email address private like this. They apparently don't want their address out, and they definitely reply. Subject: infected town. I'm gonna say this once and only once. Leave that town alone. No good can come from it. We will not be there for you. We will not answer your questions or try to help. Z is dead. R is dead. Anything is dead. We are giving up the fight. We never had the resources for anything besides a temporary fix anyway. I'm sorry we lied. I'm sorry we pretended we were stronger. We are not. It wins. You can help by posting this online so it knows it cannot find us. It has no cause to. We know when we've been beaten. Just leave us alone. I keep saying we, but it's just me now. Good luck, Claire. Please be smart. Do what it doesn't want you to. Just forget about it. That's the only way. Be in touch. I've heard it whispering to me. It's only a matter of time now. I still have my motor functions. I still have Z's gun in one bullet. I can stop from it. I can prevent yours. Goodbye. Was I sent a suicide note? The email left a horrible taste in my mouth and a sinking in my stomach. Whoever it was, I wish I could help them. But I refuse to believe anybody or whoever is behind this wins. It's firm, so don't try to talk me out of this. We will find answers, and we will fix this. It can't just be ignored and allowed to cause pain. So now you're up to speed. A couple of messages, a few nightmares, but no mold here in California. Update you if anything happens in the meantime, but next time I post, it will hopefully be to tell you about my return to the infected town. As always, your thoughts and advice are more than appreciated. Hi again. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate everything you guys do for me. If you wouldn't mind and if you enjoyed it, go ahead and like and subscribe. This is where I will be posting all of my readings and D&D sessions and everything that I think should be kind of immortalized rather than just on the Twitch channel. Few like re-uploads of the Twitch streams, but I kind of strayed away from that, and now it'll be more so just like readings and like true crime if I ever get into that and stuff like that. So if you are interested in any of that, feel free to like and subscribe. It does help the channel a lot. It is not required. Would appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.